Hello viewers, you're welcome to Child and Society, the program for you that discusses issues that concern you and the society, the program that showcases the good things happening in the society, that talks about policy issues, a program that also showcases good role models in the society. Today with you is your regular presenter, Vivi Colley, and my co-presenters and colleagues in social work, child protection. Over to the right is
Simisola Dabiri, team manager.
Gladys Etiobio, practice manager.
As you know, viewers, this program is always showcased by professionals in child protection and mental health and health allied section of social care. Today we're going to be discussing issues that concerns ourselves, the children, and there's been a very concerning issue in the press. But before we go into those issues which we're going to use to showcase today's program, we're going to talk about what are the safety issues. What are the safety measures that parents need to be thinking about when thinking of or planning childcare? What do parents have to think about? In the media this week, we saw a very concerning incident whereby a child minder, or what you call a maid, or what you call a home help, who lives with a parent, or we don't know in this case whether she lives with a parent or she was just minding for the day, but she was found beating a baby who is less than 2 years. She was initially feeding this child, and whenever the child wouldn't open his mouth, she gave the child a whack in the mouth. I mean, a real whack in the mouth. What kind of person could that be? That you will leave your child with someone to care for your child, and then unknown to you, that this person actually beats your child each time you are not there. A child of less than 2 years cannot really speak and tell or explain what has happened to him or her. So this program is we will be looking at what are those measures that parents need to be thinking about, need to put in place before they say this person is going to be my my childminder, or this person is going to be my maid, living maid, or au pair. What are those things? It's very important that we think seriously about this before we appoint someone to care for our child. Because when you leave your child with a person you don't know very well, you are leaving your child at risk of harm. So it's very important that we take time. So with me today, we're going to be talking about this and looking at it. What plans do we put in place? What do we have to think about before we leave our child with someone?
What we do need to think about is what kind of childcare we're looking at. So there's different forms of childcare, isn't there? So whether or not it's external, i.e. childminding, nursery, schools, etc., or if it's internal, mother's help, home help, maid. That's the first point of...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In addition to that, when you consider those factors, looking at it in a broader spectrum, what you need to consider is what is good for me and how much do I place. I know every parent loves the child. Your child is the center of your world. And for anyone to look after your child is somebody you know you can trust, you know very well. And what skill is that person bringing? What attribute is that person bringing to look after a child? Not everyone can look after a child. It's not because you're an adult qualifies you automatically to look after a child. Even as a parent, we all still struggle in terms of caring for our child. So when you have considered, and one thing you have to take on board is, once I have done all my checks, they come back to the drawing board. If it's a family member, or an introduction, or it's a community-based, then you have to do a background checks.
Now, let's take our mind back to that scenario that we all saw in WhatsApp, in Facebook today, about the child, whom I will say is a toddler, who was left in the care of a maid, left in the care of a child abuser. What do you think about that?
But the thing about it is that the person who left their child with that person didn't think of them as a child abuser. But what they didn't do is about the background checks. Because if you're going to have somebody come into your home or care for your child, right, you have to start from where the origins of that person are. You can't just say because that person's been brought to you by somebody, then suddenly they can become a carer of your child. You have to go back to where they come from and make sure that your checks are from the grassroots.
So we're talking about this girl, yes. You're right.
Yeah.
You're damn right there. Now,
when I believe so much, even when I saw the clip, I was so gutted. You know, at a point I thought, does this family live in the United Kingdom? And that was my first, that if there's any way I can escalate this further and to get this person persecuted. That was a cruelty to a child, a vulnerable child. But besides that, when the parents hired this guy, this carer, it never crossed their mind that this same person will cause so much abuse to their vulnerable daughter. But we need to also draw the line. Abuser don't write it on their forehead that I'm an abuser. Definitely. Here I am. Definitely. And so we don't know the temperament of this person, because raising children is something that is very sensitive. And so you have to be emotionally in tune to care for children.
Right. Viewers, you've heard the guests and my colleagues here talking about what you need to be looking out for. You seem to be hiring people. The lady we saw that was abusing the little toddler, obviously must have her own needs. So I just heard my colleague say something about emotional needs of the person that you've hired. Can you just go a little bit and expatiate on the emotional impact when someone is caring for another person and that person is carrying a heavy burden on his shoulder?
Absolutely.
Whereby she is not going to be readily emotionally available for your own child. Because you've not taken time to choose who you leave your child with, you leave your child with someone who is not emotionally balanced. Do you think that that person will be emotionally available for your child? Will have the patience to care for your child? Over to you.
That is so true. It's about the emotional availability for a young child, for a toddler, from the clip we saw. Children from that age, they want to exploit their environment. They're very inquisitive. So you need patience. You need somebody that has a sound mind and somebody that loves children. You must have that passion. You must be ready to move in the child space. Children don't move in the adult space, but you need to move in the child space to understand what the child wants. In that clip, that child may not be a fast eater, maybe a very slow eater. And that carer needed to be guided by the pace of that child.
But the carer didn't have patience.
There was no patience.
She didn't have any patience. But the thing about it is that there was some kind of illusion that this person was able to childcare. And there is no clarity as to what checks or what measures were explored before they were asked to care for this child. There's an assumption that everybody can care for a child. Yeah. Everybody has got that ability.
When Gladys was speaking, she said that it's not even every parent that is capable of being able to care for their child.
Absolutely.
Let alone someone that you pluck from a stranger. You don't know their background.
Absolutely.
Don't know their history, whether they have mental health, whether they are very ratty in their family, where they're coming from. Yeah, continue.
But the other thing is that obviously the family felt there was something not right because they had CCTV in their home. They were recording the care of this child. So one has to question, did they suspect something? Did they see something?
Right, that's another way of making sure that...
that is a measurement.
You keep an eye whilst you are at work over your children. But how many parents have the financial capacity to install CCTV camera? I mean, I'm talking about even in the United Kingdom. How many parents can afford it?
Very much.
Let alone in Africa, where it's happening every day.
Very much so. But then, okay, so that is one of the measures that you could put in place in order to ensure the security of your child when you've got internal childcare.
Okay.
But even if it's external, right, what checks are you making on your external facility? Did you visit? Did you make sure that the people are qualified enough to carry out this role?
So we're going back to what could the mother of that child we saw in the clip, what could she have done? What could she have done in the first instance? You talked about different models of child care that should have been,
What she could have done is to assess, have you cared for somebody's child before? Have you cared for age, similar age before? And then be able to explore and understand the skills that this carer is bringing into your home to look after your child.
So go back to the model. Yeah, the models. Because we talked about different models.
Yeah, the community model.
Community model. She's choosing a community model, am I right?
What, mother? The current mother?
The mother, of the child in the clip.
She chose a home. It wasn't a community model, because a community model for me very much is like childcare externally. I would say a home help is more like an internal situation, internal care.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We have been discussing what happened in that clip where a child was left in the care of someone who was not really appropriate to care for a child. We're going to go for break in a few minutes, and then when we come back, we'll be looking at what model the mom chose and why she chose that model, and what other models of childcare she could have chosen in order to safeguard her child, in order to make sure that the child is not left in the hand of abusers. We've been discussing issue concerning a child who was left with a carer who was beating the child because the child was not eating at the rate the carer wanted. Could you please tell us what the carer could have done in order to choose a right person for her son?
Yeah, thank you. Having said that, you did speak about what the mother could have done. We need to look at the financial aspect of it, the cost of placing the children into care. We need to look at if this mother had enough money to be able to look at other options in terms of the external one, like the nursery, the pre-nursery, the ones that are government in tune and not having to bring somebody home. So we need to be looking at what was the cost of it. Was this child carer, was she well paid? And having said that, the background has already been mentioned. What were the background checks that were being put in place? In that, is this child carer, this paid child carer, has she herself has got siblings? Has she got a history or family dynamic of abuse? And also, we need to look at her age and also the dynamic of the family itself. Does she have other children? What about other jobs? And was the woman able to pick up different stress level that must have been impacted on her, which she felt like she couldn't, but just to use her sort of ways of expressing her stress and the challenges at home onto the child.
What you're saying now, you're talking about that the mother of that child should have been thinking about these things, making this assessment of the carer, of the maid. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
All right.
Money is very important.
Okay.
I mean, if she goes for a cheap option of getting somebody through word of mouth who hasn't been properly vetted and who doesn't actually know how to look after a child, because looking after children is not about just being putting them as baby minders in front of the telly and just putting somebody to say, look after the house. It takes a lot. And those are the things in which we need to be looking at. It's not just putting somebody as a furniture or as a number, or there's somebody at home to look after.
Okay, you talked about aspect of finance being a factor. Right, we know that in terms of models, we're talking about childcare outside, which is like nursery, which you have to pay for. Sometimes you may not have money to pay for it. And then we're talking about au pair, which means someone comes to your home to live with you. And it's, again, can be expensive in the United Kingdom. But in Africa, it's less expensive, but you have to have accommodation, don't you? Yeah. And then other home helps, which someone who comes during the day and goes back as well. Yeah. Right. But there's also more. Think about that very clip we watched. There's more to it.
I think role will have to be defined. Defining role in the aspect of, is this carer just looking after this child as per doing other domestic duties? Because one can become overwhelmed or burdensome with other tasks. And you could see the carer from that clip, even if it's just about 3 or 4 minutes clip, that she wanted to relax. And you could see emotions and patience come into play. And she was eating a tub of ice cream. This is my time, and this is the only time I need, and this baby will not give me the chance. And so if you are a mother, asking someone to care for your child, if it's just your child alone and you are not there, so you are able to assess the risk. If I'm overburdening this person, too much tax for this person, what time does this person have to care for my son or my child?
It borders in what Grace just said.
Absolutely.
Because the emotion, and in what you said previously, we're looking at the emotions, what's going on in the mind of this carer. Is this carer happy? Does mom know the background of this carer? Is the carer happy in the house? Is the maid happy? Is she made to feel isolated?
Acceptable.
Is she acceptable, like you said?
Part of the
Does she have
of the
emotional needs that are neglected? Is mom sensitive to the fact that to her age? Some carers who look after children, sometimes they are not given time off.
Yeah.
Sometimes they work long hours.
Long hours.
So those things are not being checked. So they begin to take out their anger, by hitting the children, out on the children that they're supposed to be caring for.
And then also we need to look at the educational aspect of this carer as well. Is this carer in tune? Does this carer actually know the impact of the physical which this child has been putting on the child? Does this looked at the physical complication and then the way this carer was, or the child helper was feeding the child? We need to look at, before we hire somebody to come into our home, how educated, how knowledgeable in which they are in this role, which you just speak about.
Yeah.
Well, how educated and knowledgeable in that role are we putting them? Because it's a very big responsibility. We don't just assume because she's a woman, then she's capable of fitting into those roles.
Viewers, we've been talking about the issue of what you as a parent need to take into consideration when you're planning for child care. We've talked about the video clip which has been shared in the internet and WhatsApp about a child who is left with a carer, and the carer, we don't know what's wrong with her. My colleagues here have talked about her not being emotionally stable. She actually lashed out and hit this child more than 3 times. That's what we're talking about. And today we've learned that it's very important that when you are trying to get childcare, think about the type of childcare. Who are you bringing to care for your child? Is that person assessed? Who is making the assessment? Are you using what model? Are you going to a facility like childcare nursery facility where people have been vetted to care for your child? Are you going to go through the backside of the child traffickers who bring children from the villages and they give a child to you who has never even cared for anybody before, and you leave them to care for your children? That's what we are talking about. This program that we are discussing is very thought-provoking, and it affects every household. I can even remember as a child being left in the hands of carers. You must remember being left in the hands of carers. And I'm sure you did.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Most of us have been left with other people to care for, but do our parents know what we went through? What we are saying is that we are now aware that children left with people who are not vetted are likely to suffer harm. It's very important that you do not leave your children with people you don't know unless they are checked. You can check them through going to their community where they came from. finding out whether from their police station whether their families are known. If there is hospitals, what do you call it, GP services, like hospital services, if they have any history of mental health in their family. You can also, go to Ministry of Women's Welfare and ask for an assessment to be undertaken if you wanted. In United Kingdom, there is nobody who can look after your child except somebody who is registered. If you are putting your children in the hands of unregistered child minors, you are putting your children at risk. Viewers, we thank you very much. This is how much we can tell you today. Next week, please stay tuned. Watch us again on the same channel. We'll be discussing hot topics that impact on yourselves, your children, your community. And we'll be discussing equally policies that are in place or not in place and how they impact on you. That is what we're talking about. You are welcome to join in this debate anytime. Just ring us or text our number, which comes up in the phone, which comes up now. See the number and the text message. Thank you very much, and we expect your text messages.